There are certain imperatives that may not escape my attention. Number one is was there any need for the talks? That's the first thing we should interrogate. There was completely no need for the talks because it comes as post facto to the election, looking at some of the things that even Azimio is listing, like the auditing of the results for the past election. How does that help us as where we are? Because we should be defining another path that helps us to recapture what we lost during the election of 2022 in terms of managing our elections. But then the management of elections in this country still remains a very important aspect of our democracy, and we need to have a concerted effort towards that. That will not take only a few gentlemen and ladies sitting in a room, but is a national conversation that goes to the deeper details of how our elections are bungled and how our democracy is continuously becoming a facade. Number two, we have to look at what necessarily did young people mostly go to the streets for. They were not going there because they wanted two-third gender rule. Two-third gender rule is in the purview of the implementers of the Constitution. It is written already, and there's a prescription of how it should happen. We do not have that. We do not need to take that to a table to discuss now what does two-third gender rule mean and how can we implement it. The most important thing that took people on the streets was the high cost of living. And that high cost of living can be addressed at policy level. It can be addressed without necessarily sitting people in Bomas to discuss for a whole month and then come back to us. So where do we start? The cost of living has been exacerbated by the Finance Act of 2023. That's where our focus needs to be. And then number three, when we hear anything in this country that talks about dialogue or talks, however, there's always a denotative and a connotative meaning of a word. But here, dialogue means there's something that people are going to share on that table. When people share anything on that table, we later address the reason why that boy in Nyalenda died, that boy in Emali died, that boy in Kitengela lost his life. He lost his life in the pursuit of trying to get a Kenya that pleases everyone. Each one of us here is here by right. We are not here on the invitation of another person. So we have to be treated as equal citizens. And then I also want to discuss the issue of, or the relevance of the clergy in this conversation. Number one, we have to contextualize this issue. Our churches have continuously been used as the arena for political mudslinging and wrestling and gymnasium, and that continues to snatch the currency of the clergy, even getting a bargaining power to be part of the conversation. A lot of times we have seen the clergy look or seem to wave on certain conversation that happen on the pulpit, and you wonder, and sometimes you sit back and see there are people who are nodding while that person is speaking and spewing vitriol and anger, and sometimes a lot of misinformation. There was a church where a senior member of the Senate stood and actually said maandamano is evil, and it is recorded in the Bible as an evil act. And everybody was clapping. So walking from that direction, and then you ask now you want to be part of the conversations, then we are asking, what exactly are you going to contribute? And you have already taken a stand. You have provided your pulpit as the arena, the official arena. Every weekend we hear this was said, that was said. Lastly, Trevor, we have to interrogate the place of the Constitution in all these talks. I have read the Constitution, and I don't see anywhere where the conversation of converting that which is deliberated in Bomas gets into acquiring a legal perspective. It does not make sense. Okay. And therefore, this Constitution, unless we guard it, it will progressively be clawed back, as they have already started attempting to claw back Article 37.